right, Josh at Inspired Sports Cards on Instagram. Welcome to the Shallow End. How are you?
Doing great, Dave. Thank you so much for having me on. Really
Great.
appreciate it.
Looking forward to talking cards today. For those of us who haven't gotten a chance to know you a little bit so far, why don't you introduce yourself to the card world?
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it, Dave. So I live here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Been out here about 22 years. Have a beautiful wife, Sarah, three kids, Sammy, Brody, and Eva. And moved out here from upstate New York. So I grew up in just outside of Albany and went to school there, went to college in Oneonta at Hartway College, and then worked for a bank for a year. Moved back in, with my parents right after college, trying to figure out my life, and moved in with them for a year. And then a buddy said, "Hey, what do you think about moving out to Colorado Springs?" And I was like, "Let's do it." So moved out here, and it was an awesome decision. I really enjoy everything out here: hiking, camping, biking, running, everything that Colorado brings to it. Been with the same employer now for it'll be 20 years next June. And yeah, just getting back into this hobby over the last couple of years has been quite a thrill, to say the least.
So, getting back into it, why don't you take us through maybe like what your first iteration in the hobby was, and then what it's been like and how you got back into it?
Yeah, absolutely. Junk wax era. So I'm 45. I collected for the first time around from that 88 to 92 time frame. Going to the local card shop. I'd be really curious if anybody listening to this went to this card shop growing up. But it was called the Collector's Den. It was in Latham, New York. It's the most memorable thing about it. The owner was very memorable, very nice guy. But the outside of the shop was the green monster from Fenway. That was the marker of this local card shop. So going there, and just very fond memories going with my buddy Shane, who I grew up with in New York and in the neighborhood that I grew up in there. And a lot of 89 Upper Deck, a lot of Ken Griffey searching. Never could get one, and he managed to get, I think we just talked about this not too long ago, about three of them. And yes, they are still all in screw down cases. And yeah, so, I was big into, building sets. So building 88 tops, 89 tops, 89 Upper Deck. I fondly remember building out, like writing out the checklists and crossing off each one as we got it. So really big into set building at the time. And I actually had a box labeled investment cards at the time. So actually, I don't have it. I ended up getting rid of it, but took the investment cards out. Obviously, being junk wax era, not very investable, as we all know. But these boxes, if you remember, growing up, and some of us still have them now, right? This is from 89. So this actually holds 89 tops, commons, and says. And yeah, so, that was just building the sets in those, crossing them off. And that was a big part of it. I had a binder, which I actually have downstairs here, that was full of my PC at the time, which included Will Clark, Ryan Sandberg, Mattingly, Griffey, and yes, Chris Sabo, and Todd Van Poppel, right? Very much still have those cards down there if anybody wants them. But yeah, it's, so going back there and moving out here, I would go back home. And about a couple years ago, I was like, I'm just going to go up there and into my childhood bedroom and look in the closet and see what was still there. And Dave was like a time capsule. It was like nothing had moved. My parents did not get rid of it all. If anything, there was more stuff in my childhood bedroom than when I moved out of there. And so all those boxes were there, binders, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I actually brought these out, but I kept these in the package, these starting lineups, if you remember. So Nolan Ryan and Bo Jackson. Sticker price on them, $4.42. From Kmart, I think it was.
They're not that much more now, I think, if you want to hop on either.
$4.50, I think, last I looked. So, yeah. But you know what? It's about the memories. And I know we're going to talk about this later too, but when we look at the heart component and the emotional part of the hobby, or just really anything nostalgic, I look at these and I very much remember tacking these up on my wall. For some reason, I had the wherewithal to keep them in the package. And yeah, it was really cool finding those. I have about 5 of them. There's Ryan Sandberg and a couple Will Clarks too, but it's been really neat coming across this stuff. And, I had those boxes of cards and everything. They're downstairs here too, but my father shipped them out to me just because it would be way too much to carry on the plane on the trip back here to Colorado. And I started going through all the stuff, and it had nothing to do with COVID. Absolutely, it was just a pure coincidence that I just got re-interested in this. And I think my brother was telling me about this. There's that 20-year span after you're a kid or college or whatever it might be, where nostalgia really hits hard. And I think that's just what it was. I think I was very curious to be like, what do I still have as a kid? And that's where I came across that. So had all the stuff shipped back here to our home in Colorado Springs and started rifling through all the stuff and trying to see, hey, is there anything like as a kid I just didn't notice that was a special card at the time? Or maybe, now with the players I'd be interested in now, maybe they're in these boxes, but I didn't really care about them at the time. Or maybe it was a brand new rookie and they didn't end up panning out, or they did end up panning out. And now they're actually, collectible or whatnot. So rifled through all of it. It was a ton of hours going through all the old cards. And, I think the biggest find is I found a Michael Jordan skybox. I think it was the 90 or 91 skybox. Very cool card at the time. I think any Michael Jordan card is cool. So I did collect not only baseball, but also football and basketball. So there's a lot of score football, skybox basketball, NBA hoops, that kind of stuff. And that was probably the biggest find out of it. There's the Mark Jackson card, the basketball one where it has the Menendez brothers in the back. At the time as a kid, you had no idea, or I don't even know if that happened, when we were collecting at the time, and it just became an interesting card, for that reason. But so yeah, went through all of it. Obviously, nothing that was really of big value or anything, but it did encourage me to look up like, hey, what is going on with cards right now? Like, are people into it? Are they not into it? And I think like a lot of us, just absolutely shocked at what happened over COVID. Base cards being graded. I didn't even know what grading was. I never even heard about it until a year and a half, 2 years ago. And just absolutely amazed at the prices and the interests and how things blew up. And it's been very interesting. It's been very, very interesting. I'm big into the Yankees, as you can tell, got the hat on and everything, but I've been a Yankees fan since I've been born. Growing up in New York, we would go to the AA, the Albany Colony Yankees, in Albany. That would be, the biggest sporting events we would go to there locally. Other than that, in Albany, you have to go down to the city, which was 3 hours away, to go to any, Yankees or Mets or Knicks or anything. And, there were some big players that came through when I was there. Bernie Williams came through when I was there, which I'll bring up a card that I got signed by him at the time as part of what we'll talk about later. And, we stopped going right before Jeter. Jeter, I think, was like 92 or 93 at Albany when he was in the AA, when he was in the farm system and everything. Just barely missed him. But Dion was part of the AC Yankees. So primetime, we would see him come through. And then if you remember from Junk Wax, Kevin Moss, you talk about a learning lesson.
Oh my God. He and Todd Van Poppel and Ben McDonald were these huge chases in that.
Yeah. And I mean, man, it's really interesting with prospecting. And I've realized quickly it's not the route I want to go down, or I've wanted to go down over the last couple of years. I've dabbled with a little bit, but I quickly realized that's not the route I want to be.
Sure. And just hearing you talk and seeing your Instagram feed, you can just tell how into this that you are, right?
Yeah.
So you're from upstate New York, you're wearing the Yankees hat. And I don't usually do this, but I want the people to hear this. I'm going to read your Instagram profile. Okay. You said Yankees fan and avid baseball card collector. PC, Judge, Jeter, Ohtani, Trout, Griffey Jr., Mantle, Mattingly, Ichiro, Volpe, Jackie, Hank, and Hall of Famers. I assume that's Hank Aaron, not Hank Greenberg.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a lot. But it also goes to your appreciation for both the history of the sport and what's going on now and where you're from and some of the best players.
Yep.
So how do you direct your attention? That's a lot. How do you direct your attention to fulfill your hobby needs?
Yeah, and you know what? It's a great point. Interestingly enough, that was slimmed down from about 30 when I first when I first got into this, and uh, I've slimmed down. I've figured out my lane. When I started buying slabs and figuring out this 2.0 stage of my interest in the hobby, um, in the beginning, I was getting like Peyton Manning rookie cards, Kobe rookie cards. I was looking at Elway, not so much Jordan. I have the old like 90s, Jordan cards. None of like none of the big time Jordan 90s cards. But yeah, I realized quickly that I needed to create a lane, and the main lane is baseball. If the major is baseball, the minor is Yankees, and then if you look at all the other players too, I wanted to have a PC of players that I admire and respect, and within baseball that are mainly Yankees. That's what the PC consists of. And I know there's been a lot of talk about this too. How many cards do you need to consider it a PC? And I've thought a lot about this too, and I honestly don't think, Dave, that you can really quantify it. I think you could have one card that is an amazing card that can be a PC. It could be one card that's a common base card, and that's your PC. I don't think you can really quantify it. I don't think it's fair to quantify it because people have all different, financial means or whatever it might be. And, I think it's just a PC is just a player that you collect, that you plan to hold long term, that you probably respect and admire, and that inspires you and wants to, want to hold on to it long term. You'd be proud to take it out and tell somebody the history of this player, or tell somebody why you collect them. That's a PC. That could be one card, or that could be 100 cards, in my opinion. But I know it's subjective.
Well, I think if I'm hearing what you're saying is sometimes we almost need to decide for ourselves what our PC size and content is going to be.
Yeah.
And it would be really easy to say, oh, well, I've only got 6 of so-and-so. So I guess I got to go buy 5 more or sell them. So that's not really my PC. But if we could just find a way to be content in a way, right? Then that way we know, like, I need a card of so-and-so. I need 5 cards of these, or I like these 4 cards of Bernie Williams or whoever.
Right.
That's good enough, right? And enough of this. Let's try to define this for everyone and try to fit everybody into the same shapes.
Yeah. In my opinion, it's not realistic to put a number on it. It's just not. I mean, you have your 48 leaf Jackie that you grab. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
On grabbing that. If that was the only Jackie card that you had, that's a PC, man. I mean, that's, you don't have to have that and then have to have his 55 or his 56 or 54. It's like, man, I mean, how many people would absolutely love having that card alone, or like what you did where you consolidated, you sold a bunch and traded a bunch to get that one. Yeah, I don't think you can really quantify it, in my opinion.
So the players that you picked, I don't have to ask why for any of them, right? That you can see that they're tied to the Yankees. They're tied to baseball history. They're, like you said, players who you admire and appreciate, but they are players who oftentimes are PC'd in the hobby.
Sure.
They are, I would think that would probably get pretty competitive in terms of chasing down certain cards. So when you see a card that you want, how do you know? Is it a feeling? Is it, do you have a spreadsheet? Everyone's different in how they do things. How do you go after something once you realize that you want it?
Yeah. Yeah. So again, part of my evolution with Hobby 2.0, my Hobby 2.0, what I looked at initially was like, man, I really want one card of every year of that player. And what I quickly realized with that too was I was kind of sacrificing it, and I would get, like a Judge 2017 rookie, a 2018, a cool card. And then 2019, I was kind of like, I'll get this one, but it's not that great. I don't really love it, And I just quickly realized, like, I don't want a PC of like, a bunch of cards that are great and then just a bunch of okay ones, which would probably be in the majority if I tried to go for every year with that. Unless you look back at, Jackie or Hank, where it's just that was their only card, Mainly was just their base card. So what it's evolved into now is just I have criteria that I've built out. So 5 questions I ask myself, and this might be stemming from when you came up with this on an episode. Might be some kind of iteration. I need to go back and look at it, but is it rare? Is it significant or iconic? Is it a rookie? Does it have high eye appeal? And is it a PC player or a Yankee? And if it's 3+, if 3 of those are yes, then if the price is right, then maybe. If it's a 4 or a 5 out of 5 and the price is right, then it's a yes. And then just, if I have the funds, grab it. If not, build up the budget, trade some cards, sell some cards, whatever it might be to get that. But again, too, I think in establishing that lane, because I'll look at cards and be like, man, that's really cool. I think I want that, but does it fit this criteria, which I think is held pretty firm since I've built that criteria, and the cards that I've gotten since, I've been very happy with since then. So I know it's working, if you could call it a formula or whatever.
Sure. Was it a process? Was it trial and error in which you thought, because sometimes we get caught in this completionist mindset, which for some works, sometimes it doesn't, where it's like, well, okay, I'm going to be collecting the entire Bob Gibson run from 59 to 76, or whatever that was.
Right.
Well, like you said, you get to like 66, you're like, all right. Now, I guess now I have to put some money into this budget for this because now I've got to fix it. Was it like that for you when you're with Aaron Judge, where you're realizing this is just not what I want anymore? Just the 17 is enough.
Right. It was. And, one of the guys is Trout. And that's one of the first that comes to mind is like, I got a couple Trout autos. And, I was like, I am just having the hardest time. And any Trout listeners right now will probably maybe, be an interesting response to me saying this. But the 2011 Topps update, even though it's come down tremendously, I still have a hard time paying that much for a base card. Now, I know it's kind of looking in a vacuum in a way, and I know there's, if it's not compared to a base card nowadays. I know it's different. The print runs are different, and all. I totally get it. But it's even the same right now with like the Ohtani, the 2018 Bowman Chrome base card. I mean, a PSA 9 or Raw is going for what, $300-$400? And it's like, I just have the hardest time paying that much for a base card. And again, too, I know it's very subjective. This hobby is very subjective all around, right? Tons of different ways everybody likes to collect, and it's an amazing card. I don't know, having a hard time wrapping my head around paying $400 for a base card that's a 9 or whatnot,
Yeah. So one of the things that we were talking about just before we went on the air was the idea that comes from the art world of there are 3 different ways that most collectors will collect.
Yeah.
Which is you collect with your mind, you collect with your heart, you collect with your eyes. The mind being, it's like you've studied, you thought it through, this card makes sense, or this piece of artwork makes sense. Great. Right. The heart, there's some connection there. Great. And then the eyes, like, boy, I like the way this looks. For example, I talked to SJ Soccer Cards a couple of weeks ago, and it's not enough for him to collect a player just because he happens to admire the player. He wants the card to look a certain way, and that's when he knows. So it's sort of a Venn diagram of the 3, right?
Yeah.
And this seems to have resonated with you as well. This idea of collecting in the way that the art world thinks about it as well. So just say a little bit about how you think about collecting and how sort of these 3 facets have informed or are starting to inform your collecting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in addition to those 5 criteria, I'm certainly going to be thinking about it since you posted that podcast and relating it to the art community, which I think is brilliant. Like we talked about before we jumped on too. I mean, these are like little pieces of art in a way, right? And it's been very interesting to think about how I would put them in these 3 different areas. And I've even looked at it like, hey, from the for lack of a better term, where you said you could bash other collectors, or what's the one way to bash other collectors is saying they collect with their ears. I thought about that too. I'm like, hey, do I have any cards that fit that criteria? And I think I have some in my collection. But what I did think about in terms of collecting with your ears is I think I've avoided some cards because of that, and I think they are amazing cards. But there's just part of me, because I'm collecting from a long-term approach, that it's holding me back from collecting, like an incredible. I think about pitchers and catchers is kind of where I'm going at with that. So we know pitchers and catchers get a bad rap with collecting, regardless of how awesome they are. But man, there's some awesome Garrett Cole cards out there. I mean, look at Skeens and that might be an exception right now. And naturally Ohtani pitching. I mean, that's an exception as well, but that's just a whole different category. But I think I've avoided some cards like that. Like, do I not collect Yogi Berra because he was a catcher? I don't know. I'm not really sure if that's the reason, or if it just didn't speak to me, or it's just, somebody I didn't really talk about or hear about, talk about too much growing up, compared to like Mantle, for example, or my uncle was a big Mantle fan and we would talk about that. So yeah, it's been very interesting, but I really do love that approach. And I would recommend anybody, if you haven't listened to Dave's podcast from before, go back and listen to it. But look at our collections and how do we classify it in these different areas. And it could be eye-opening, in a good way.
Great. So you brought some cards along with you here, and you asked me to pull out some as well. So I pulled out one for each of the categories. Yeah. One head, or one mind, one heart, one eyes.
Right.
So yeah. So as we do this, some people are just listening, some will be watching on YouTube, but as you hold yours up, just be sure that you're saying what it is as well, so they can sort of picture it with their mind's eye. So in whatever order, hey, you have the floor. So why don't you show a few cards?
Yeah. Yep. So I'm going to start with heart, and this one. So this is a Bernie Williams minor league Albany Colony Yankees pro card, signed and ballpoint ink.
That looks great. Looks great.
So the reason why this speaks to me from a heart standpoint is when I was around 10 years old, we would go to a baseball camp just outside of Albany in Lansingburg, New York. And since the Albany Colony Yankees were playing right there in town, they would invite them in. And I got to take a couple of hits off of Bernie. We know he wasn't a pitcher, but they would just jump in and, lob us pitches and everything. And just awesome memories. I would go there with my friends. We would get to meet these guys. We met him, Bucky Dent, remember Ed Kranepool, and then the famous, or I guess we could say infamous, Tommy John. I do have a Tommy John 89 Topps that was signed in Sharpie. That still looks amazing. That's in my case right here too.
Was he a Yankee in that year, in that card?
Yeah. So I'll never sell this. There's absolutely no way whatsoever I would ever sell this. It's just, and I think that's why it falls in that heart, category. It's because it's going to be my PC forever because of that.
Terrific. Love it. And I can see, and the value, that's, the word value has many different sub meanings to it. Right. And I think it's not just cost, and that one, certainly you can see why. I can't imagine there'd be any scenario in which you would ever possibly move it. There is none.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me throw one up here as well, just so I can participate as well. Yeah. I just picked this up. This is a 1998 Fleer Platinum Medallion.
Awesome.
Oh, sorry, it's also of Platinum of Willie McGee. It was
Very
my
cool.
guy growing up, right?
Yeah.
He's probably the guy that I would PC if he wasn't purely junk wax, because he was all just 80s cards. And then by the time cards got good around 93, he had moved on to San Francisco and then Oakland. But at the end of his career, he returned to St. Louis for his last 3 years, where he was sometimes a starter, more just a fan favorite. He'd spell some other guys, play a couple times a week. But this is one of the few serial numbered cards of him in a Cardinals uniform. So
that's great.
I found this from a seller in Canada, and had to wait for customs to do their due diligence. But it finally arrived yesterday. So that's definitely a card of the heart right there.
Hey, so maybe it's a honey hole baseball cards up in Canada.
Yeah, there you go. All right, what else you got?
So this is from an eyes standpoint. Ichiro is one of my PCs, as we talked about. And this is a gold out of 50, 2002 Bowman's Best. And man, when I saw this on eBay, it just absolutely caught my eye. hence why it's falling in that category. But just an awesome looking card. One of the coolest things about it, I don't think the camera will catch it here, but it actually has kind of 3 different point of views to it. The way you hold it, it looks completely different. It's not going to really catch it here, but the way they design this card, you talk about art and you talk about just the eye appeal. This thing, when I saw it on eBay, I was like, I got to grab that.
That is a special card. That is incredible.
It's awesome.
Good. Well, I'll throw up one for the eyes here as well. I am a Brian Jordan collector. He's my primary PC. This is his 98. It's an SP Authentic, not numbered to anything. I picked it up for $1.99, I think. I'm gonna describe him before I show it, but he was one of the 3. He's part of this trinity of players who were crossover athletes. There was Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, and Brian Jordan, who played football and baseball.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only picture that really shows him as a baseball player, but what he looked like as a football player. The photographer must have known this. They have him in cut-off sleeves. And if you can imagine this, he was a strong safety. And if you can imagine him coming around third base ready to annihilate a catcher, which he did often.
Yeah.
Visually, I'm like, this is the card that represents who Brian Jordan was. So there's him.
Oh man.
Right.
You've talked about this one before, where like he's sitting on a bat, basically, right?
This is it, right? And I've never showed it. But this is not how baseball players look.
Yeah.
And you can see why catchers would move out of the way as he was coming rather than risk their careers on him.
He's ready to make some stuff happen.
He is. So I thought, beautiful card.
Yeah.
Price is right, $2. So, all right, let's go. You're up next. Let's see what you got.
Can't beat that. All right. This is from the mind perspective. And, with this one, it's the Aaron Judge rookie patch auto 2017 definitive out of 50. Game used patch with the pinstripes.
So it is game used.
It is game used. Yep. And the auto, he's got a couple different variations of his auto, and this one's the little lengthier with his first name, and everything in blue ink. But the reason why, it has eye appeal, right? There's no doubt about it. This could easily go in the eye. But when I think about, this was my first big card that I got, getting back into it. And, the reason why it falls under the mind to me, maybe even more so than the eye appeal, is because I did the research to be like, what are all the different areas of a card that make it significant or that make it kind of long lasting and everything. And this has so many different components to it that fit different criteria that I think a lot of us look for. So, you got the blue on-card auto. You got the out of 50, so it's serial numbered, it's game used, it's got the rookie card logo, and it's licensed, right? It's tops and everything, and it's got a nice grade on it with the 10 auto, the 9 mint. It's in a BGS slab for those just listening, and man, it just hit all the different areas that I think really fit. Like you need to think about, thinking about this and having all those different components on one card. I've heard this definitive, or actually this card explained, by somebody else at one point, and they said they just did an amazing job with this Topps definitive of having it be. It's very busy with all different stuff going on, but they did a great job of making it look really nice as well too. So that's
an incredible card, and the reason what's sticking with me now, numbered out of 50 is great. The blue auto looks terrific. It's his rookie year, amazing.
Yeah.
But when you think of the history of baseball and you think of the Yankees, you think of the pinstripes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it could have been the, what they call like the tidy whitey patch where all it is something white.
Napkin
patch. Right. But to have the pinstripes on there, that's when you think of certain iconic images from American sport, it's the pinstripes from the Yankees. It's the leprechaun from the Celtics.
Yep.
It's the star from the Dallas Cowboys. And then I'd have to really think hard about what else would be on there possibly. So for them to capture that, like what a card, what an incredible card.
I love it. Yeah. And you're absolutely right with the pinstripes. I think the Yankees have kind of have an advantage that way with relics and game use patches, because you don't need to necessarily grab like a part of the name, the team name, or a part of the name on their back or their number. Very few teams I think kind of have that, where it's like the pinstripes are all over their jersey. So you can kind of pick a lot of that. But yeah, I really love that one. Be holding on to it for very long term. And, one of my goals too is eventually to hand these down to my kids. So I think that'd be a really cool one to hand down as, they cross the aisle and they get married or graduate college or get their first job or whatnot. I think that'd be a cool one to hand down. I might hang on to it for a little bit longer, more than that, but we'll see.
Sure. So what kinds of cards are on your eBay watch list? What do you have like an immediate pursuit, or do you just sort of feel it when you see it?
Yeah. Really thinking more still very much long-term. I mean, there's some of like the less expensive ones like that I could go out there and grab, but I have gotten more and more into like, I just want to save up for more of those bangers really to keep long-term. And a couple of them I have on my watch list right now that are in the future at some point would be the 54 Red Heart Mantle, the 2018 Independence Day Judge, the Future Stars with the epic 2018 Independence Day Parallel. That card just looks phenomenal. I've actually tracked down I know two folks who have them. We've been chatting and they're holding on to them for dear life. So they're not going to let them go right now.
Tops with 2018 Independence Day. I know they've tried to recapture that and they haven't since then, but those 2018 Independence Days were, I think, 10, 20 years from now, people will look back at that and think that was special. That was a special parallel. Bryce Harper has some incredible looking cards in there. Yadi Molina, you're talking about Aaron Judge, and I'm with you 100% on that parallel.
Yeah. I mean, I've even been tempted to get players like I have no business in collecting that. I don't think a lot of people necessarily collect. Like there's a Reese Hawkins, I'm probably mispronouncing his name. Reese Hopkins, I guess, from the Phillies, right? Hoskins. See, I have no business buying that card, but it's his rookie card in 2018 Independence Day, just like, Ohtani or Soto or whatnot, but it's dramatic. It's like $10, $15, but it keeps popping up on my saved search on eBay. And I'm like, man, I just love the parallel that much. I might even just grab that just because I think it's a cool looking card. It's him swinging the bats, an action shot. It looks really cool, but yeah, it's just one of those amazing parallels. I know 2024 Independence Day too looks really nice as well. So you got like the Dominguez, rookie card and the Independence Day that keeps coming up that looks really nice, and a couple other ones. But yeah, that Independence Day is amazing.
Yeah, you mentioned that the prospecting game isn't for yours, but for you. But is there any temptation at all? Has there been temptation to go after Dominguez?
A little bit. I have a Bowman Sterling auto of his. It's up on eBay right now, but it's kind of one of those. Is like I really enjoy the look of it. It's a wave, so it's one of those contentious parallels, I guess. But it looks really nice, and I don't know. I don't mind holding on to it. I don't mind if somebody buys it. Kind of one of those.
Sure.
And I got my son and my daughter and I ripped a box of the Topps. Was it Series 2? And it was the home field advantage, Jason Dominguez rookie card. My son pulled it, and we were all excited about it. So
incredible.
Yeah, that's probably a heart keep. If you look at the different criteria, I'll look at that card and I'll remember having a great time ripping that box with my kids because they got it for my birthday. To rip a box together. So
amazing. So yeah. As we start to wind down here, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about your presence on Instagram a lot. Yeah. Some people, they kind of dip a toe into the water a little bit, and you came in, I think it was around June of last year, June of 23.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say immediately, but you just started engaging people right away. Not in any sort of a naggy way at all, just almost in ways that we wish more people would be. Just, hey, great card, or just sort of engaging with them.
Yeah.
Was that a conscious decision, or is that just sort of like kind of like who you are, but extended into Instagram?
The latter, I think. Yeah. And I've thought about it since you sent that topic a couple of days ago. And it's just like, this is an escape. This is an escape for us, right? I'm not in this to see like the drama and to do this and that. It's very easy to get, I think, brought into that and to be curious about what's going on and the occasional stuff like, hey, this happened and what's going on. But I'm here as an escape. We have plenty of other stressors in our life outside of this. And I look at this as an escape to have fun, to engage, to encourage positivity, to encourage collaboration. I don't know. I don't understand the trolls, and I don't understand the other stuff. And it just doesn't make sense to me in something like this, where it's just to have fun in this hobby. So, I think more the latter of what you mentioned. And I really enjoy helping to boost other people up and to, make people feel welcome. If I'm, in a group and I look over and I see somebody who doesn't feel included, I generally like to bring them in, make them feel included, and everything too. So that's just, I've really enjoyed kind of, I guess, bringing that part of my personality to the hobby.
Josh, this has been great. I've loved getting to know you a little bit. If anybody out there is listening and has a 2018 Aaron Judge Independence Day,
yeah,
bring it to Josh at Inspired Sports Cards. You know where to find him. Josh, thank you so much for taking some time today. And it was great getting to know you.
Thank you, Dave. Very grateful. Appreciate it.